Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everybody. Welcome to the March 2021 edition of the Marketo User Group Roundup. My name is Michael Tucker. I'm joined by my co-host from England, Warren Stokes.
Hello, hello.
And we have a wonderful group of a new group of Marketo User Group panelists, leaders, who are going to be guiding us through all of the Marketo user groups that happened within the month of March 2021. And so we'd love to be able to welcome you. If you are a marketer and you're like us and you're really busy, you just don't have time to go through all the Marketo user groups, this is your one session to be able to watch, to give you the complete details of all of the other Marketo user groups that are happening within this month. And then you can go to mugs.marketo.com and either watch the recordings of them or understand some of the other topics that are coming up with these user groups to be able to follow up with them later on. So let's start off by introducing our two guests for today. Our first guest is just from around the corner from me in Charlotte, North Carolina, Courtney Toby. Courtney, say hi. Tell everybody a little bit about what's going on in the Charlotte Marketo User Group and a little bit about your background in Marketo.
Sure. Thanks, Michael. So I'm Courtney Toby. I'm the manager of marketing operations at AvidXchange. I'm a 2 times Marketo champion, so gotten to know Warren and Chloe pretty well, and Michael through the Charlotte MUG community, and now he's a champion too, so awesome. And yeah, I've been working in the platform for almost 7 years, and recently had the privilege of helping write the new MCE exam. So that was a very exciting thing to be a part of. Really looking forward to chatting with you all today.
Very cool. And what is your next Charlotte Marketo User Group session?
Yeah, so we're actually thinking we're going to be pushing it to May just because of all the summit things coming up in April. And we're trying to focus it around analytics, but still working on a speaker. So I'll keep you guys posted.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Courtney. We're glad to have you here. Our next panelist is Chloe Pott, who is not from the conversion store, is actually from the European Marketo user group. And I think you just made a recent change in terms of positions as well, too. So maybe you can make up for my poor PowerPoint skills and give us a little bit of a background, Chloe, and about what's going on in the Europe Marketo user group that you and Warren run, and a little bit about what you're up to these days.
Would love to. Thank you for having me, Michael and Warren. Excited to be here. So Warren and I just recently, month of March, hosted our last European virtual user group, and the topic is slipping my mind right now. It was on email deliverability with Lauren Mayer from. She also recently made a job change. Don't remember her new place, but it was all about email deliverability. We will definitely get into it in the next hour or so. And yes, you're right. I'm not from the conversion store. I made a recent job change, and I'm at Screen now, which is a Franco-American startup in cybersecurity space, and I run their marketing operations.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you for spending some time to join us. I think it's a little later on in your evening, so we're glad to have you. And Warren, just from your side of things, notice that you've got a new background going on. I think ever changing. So tell us a little bit about what's going on in your world these days too. You and Chloe are running this Marketo user group, and I think you've got some things that you're doing within the Marketo community as well too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, it could all just be fake and I could be in a tent, but you never know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening in Champions stuff now. I think, oh yeah, that's it. I forgot. I got nominated the president of the Marketo Champions group. So I get to kind of work with Adobe and the great team of the leadership team that we've got as well to hopefully put out some more knowledge to other Marketo users and just sync a lot better with some of the Adobe. Because last year we were a bit unprepared for the remote stuff, so the leadership commitment kind of like there was a bit of a fluctuation there. So now we can do some more interesting stuff with that in mind. And Brooke, who was president last year, has been really helpful in kind of helping hand some stuff over and just working closely with Brooke. So I'm excited about what I can do there.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure and a privilege to be working on these monthly sessions with you. So super excited that you are now at the helm of the Marketo Champion community. And as Courtney mentioned, this is my first run at it, and being able to be accepted is each of these champions are incredibly talented in a lot of different ways. So I'm humbled to at least have the opportunity to get in the front door to be able to kind of participate in this. But the work that you and the rest of the community has done to be able to help make the product and the community that much stronger has been terrific. Okay, well, let's dive into it right now, because speaking of the Marketo community, man, there are a lot of things happening this month. So we have, you know, April coming up is Marketo Summit or Adobe Summit time. So that's a big piece of it. And then the user groups themselves, we're past the Christmas doldrums by a long shot. People are getting into Q2 now, so things are starting to ramp up, and the user group content is just going through the roof. And so because of that, we're continuing to add onto the YouTube channel. So please, if you are watching this live, go to either conversionstore.com/video or go to YouTube and just search Marketo Virtual User Groups, and you'll get a library of all of the recordings of the Marketo user groups that we've been running. I think we're going on about 1.5 years, almost 2 years now. So there's a really deep library, and you'll notice that inside of the Bevy platform, the mugs.marketo.com platform, that all of these are starting to be organized historically too, not just by the user groups themselves, but also by the topics that people are presenting into. So if you have a challenge with your CRM sync, if you have a challenge with your email deliverability, if you have a challenge with being able to create nurture programs, whatever that is, you can go into these resources and get in-depth content that's presented by experts on these sessions that you can watch on demand. So you're not limited by your calendar or anybody else's for that matter. And so we'll talk about a number of these sessions. And if you are watching this on YouTube, if you would click on the white Marketo logo on the bottom right of your screen, that will allow you to be able to subscribe so that you'll automatically get a notice every time that a new video is posted up, which these days seems to be coming up at least several times a week. We just mentioned about Bevy and about the mugs.marketo.com. So that's a great resource to be able to sign up. And then I want to talk a little bit quickly about Adobe Summit, because this is coming up. We've been talking about this for, I don't know, what, 6 months now or so, Warren? I mean, thankfully we have the right dates. It's April the 27th and the 28th, and there's a whole series of sessions on them, right? So one of the things that we're going to do here today, because it's the end of this, and I just want to kind of jump in quickly and take a look at what is available in these sessions. So you go to this site and it'll give you an actual catalog that you can choose from, and you can say, here are all of, this is my profile. So you can kind of see what sessions that I'm signed up for here, but there's a whole catalog above and beyond that. And this is just filtered by all of the different Marketo user group, or excuse me, the Marketo sessions, but you can pick any of the Adobe products to be able to review and to be able to dive into and sign up for. And normally this would be $2,000 to attend these sessions if you were doing them live, but because they're virtual now, anybody can attend. Are there any sessions for anybody in the panel or Warren that you've signed up for that dive out? And I'll scroll through some of these if you see anything that's of interest that we could touch base on quickly.
I think my logic is based on last year, sign up for them all, sort of partly listen to some of them while they're live and then rewatch them and take notes. That was my strategy that sort of worked last time, because it's one of those things with it being virtual. You have to really set some time in your diary to block it out to get the full, unless you kind of re-listen to it. I don't know about anyone else, but that was my strategy with it. I haven't signed up for any of them specifically. In fact, I still need to register, but still.
I'm going to give myself a shameless plug, and I'm speaking with Ambika Shetty from the Adobe product team about the new Marketo Sales Insight features. So if you're interested in that, definitely check that out. But yeah, there are a ton of good sessions and a lot of other Marketo champions speaking as well. Like I see Jessica and Jen right there. So yeah, definitely sign up for them all. I agree with Warren. I feel like these virtual events, it can be very hard to give your full undivided attention like you do when you go to a trade show in real life. So if you register for them all, you can definitely go back, reference it again, and watch the recording.
Chloe, how about yourself?
Last year, I signed up for ones for specific sessions and never ended up, I couldn't attend them live because I'm based in Europe. This year, I'm doing it a little differently. I've definitely looked at the times that the sessions are being presented and signing up for ones that are within my reasonable wake hours, but also ones that actually, because I recently changed roles, ones that could possibly help me address challenges that I'm experiencing in my new role. There's a session, I think it's Brooke, and Brooke's doing a session with someone else on
With Christina.
decentralized versus centralized MOPS organizations. There's another one about auditing tech stacks that I've just recently gone through. So I'm going to watch that to see if I can learn anything from there. So there's a bunch of, I don't want to repeat what everyone else has said, but there's a lot of great sessions. And I think attendees should pick sessions based on challenges that they're experiencing right now as the priority sessions to attend, and then ones that are interested in go back and watch them at a later time when you have the free time too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think one of the things too, to your point about time zones and shifts, right, is we have, you'll see in this MUG slides too, we have quite a global audience that exists across the Marketo community in Japan and Australia and New Zealand and different parts of Europe as well, right, where you are in France and Germany, and because of that, right, no one time works for anybody. But you'll see in the summit sessions this year that there are multiple sessions that exist that are duplicate sessions that'll be in two different time periods to account for that. So if you're in EMEA or if you're in APAC, you know, you'll still find content that's relevant at your point in time that you can kind of pick through. And I'm not sure if there's a filter for that, but there, you know, I know you can quickly go in and kind of search this as well too, but you can
It
see,
might be in region.
there we go.
Yeah, if you click Europe,
Here we go.
it'll show the ones that are in the European working hours.
So again, invite everybody to kind of go to this summit.adobe.com URL. And I thought it'd be nice to kind of have us actually give a look into that too, and kind of go an extra step this month. So this is coming up in a couple of weeks, and make sure that you get your spot so that you're able to go ahead and participate in that. And you've got a spot to be able to ask questions live. Okay, so now we're going to dive in directly into the actual sessions themselves. And so again, we're looking at all of the different user group sessions that happened in the month of March. So this is the total list. And I always like to start off at the beginning by talking about the recurring sessions that Inga and Sandy are doing in the office hours that you'll see in New York City every Wednesday. I think that that's a nice starting point. And I think it kind of speaks to the fact that you know, you are able to actively participate. These aren't webinars where you are in the background listening to a bunch of talking heads, that you're actually able to interact in real life, in live time with all these people. So, you know, lots of great questions that came through in the office hours there. And maybe we can just talk in general about some of the open chat sessions that exist. So think about Seattle did one, Raleigh always does one like that. And any other ones that kind of jump out immediately is just open sessions that aren't around a specific topic, but they're just people that can dive in and talk.
I think with the Raleigh one, actually, I think we were on it this month. I can never remember.
Yep.
These months of flying past, but it's bringing your problem to the team. I think that's Raleigh, and then everyone will chip in, and it's not recorded, so confidentially you could bring up a legitimate business problem, and then you have a great bunch of people to help solve that problem. So that could be a really interesting one if you have a very specific problem to attend, and that reoccurs every month, doesn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, theirs are great because they'll open up, and all the ones that are not recorded, you'll see like a lot, oftentimes they'll open up a live instance and be able to share those, right?
Yeah.
Courtney or Chloe, do either of you have like a live discussion one that kind of jumps out at you from this month, or maybe, maybe because again we can't kind of reference the recordings individually from the privacy standpoint, but what are strong ones that you see really good conversations, really good thought leadership coming out of?
There's one that's not on this list that actually happened yesterday. It was the London user group. It was about forms. It was Amanda Thomas and Jules James who presented a presentation that they've done at many summits past, but it was the first time that I had seen it, and it was recorded. So if anyone who wants to go watch it, it's I think it's up on the Marketo channel, the YouTube channel. But it blew my mind. I mean, I've been telling people recently that I learn something new every day, working not just in marketing operations, but with Marketo. And yesterday, I got so many ideas, things to do with forms embedded into our website on landing pages, and a lot of it references good old Sandy and his special JavaScript that everyone's got to use. But that yesterday's session with the London group was, for me, it was mind blowing.
That's really neat. Yeah, I like that a lot too, and there's a lot of different discussion that you can kind of see with the forums that are available. And so that one's recorded to be able to catch up on.
Yes.
Let's kind of ping back and forth on different ones. And Courtney, if we could go to you, and maybe a session that you have that you want to be able to reference off of this list.
For sure. So I attended the Houston MUG about executable campaigns, and that was presented by Beth I'm not going to say her name right, Masura from.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I said it wrong, sorry. But that was really interesting to me because it's basically talking about new functionality that is in beta pilot right now. That is pretty much going to be a brand new smart campaign type. So it operates in a sense like the request campaign functionality, but will be, instead of like a trigger or a batch campaign, its own separate executable campaign. And basically, from what I was getting out of it, like every single part of the flow step has to happen in one smooth, like fell swoop in order to leverage that campaign type. But a good use case example that she provided was for sort of like operational programs that you have, especially when like a net new person is added to your database and you want to run them through, some data validation programs, your preference center. Right now, the way that we can do that, we can sometimes run into like racing conditions where they don't go through the flow in the order of operations that you necessarily want them to. And so it sounds like the executable campaign would be a good solution to ensure that they're able to run through all of those different types of operational programs that you need. Another cool functionality that new feature will have is that it will inherit all of those individual program tokens. So say if you're referencing like other smart campaigns in that executable campaign, all of the native tokens from that program will automatically be inherited in this new smart campaign type. So it sounds very interesting. I'm not sure if I already said this part, but May 7th is the date that Beth said it should be launching for like all Marketo instances. I'm not sure if that's like 100%, but that is the date that she provided in the MUG. But sort of to Chloe's point, like that's just something I love about being in the Marketo community, is there's just always new features, new functionalities, like even forms, something that we use like every single day. And I've been working in the platform for 7 years. Like there's still new things that you can learn and iterate on to make your programs and your instance better. So very exciting community for sure.
Okay, that's a really good, that sounds like a really good session. I didn't get a chance to see that one, so I'm gonna catch the review on that.
Yeah, she
Um,
did a great job of sort of outlining like all different examples of how and when you would want to use it and certain things to look out for. So I definitely recommend checking it out.
Very cool. Okay, I'll do one on the Baltimore Marketo user group, and then maybe we go Warren and Chloe afterwards if each of you kind of gets ready for the next session. But on the Baltimore Marketo user group was kind of a neat one. Baltimore has always been an active user group, but I think we've seen a little less content just over the pandemic. But Will Davis is one of my favorite people to talk to, and he's just a very charismatic, affable person, and just really true kind of professional into the actual profession of marketing technology. And he just led this wonderful discussion all about how to use UTM parameters. I realize my capitalization is wrong on that one, but anyway, it was an interesting discussion because he's really moderating it, and it kind of like the same kind of an open forum style conversation that we had here. We had people that were on the chat that were heavily experts inside of UTM parameters. We had HubSpot people that actually joined us as well too, and we got a chance to talk a little bit about the differences in terms of how those different UTM values are handled in HubSpot versus Marketo, and some of the different ways to handle that kind of programmatically, right? About how to be able to build out some of those values to automatically generate them, and or how to be able to kind of manage them. Like, do you put them in a spreadsheet? Do you actually use a tool or a piece of software? Do you make them tokens? Some people use local tokens and will put their UTM values in those and build all of their URLs or their links inside of their local programs to be able to automatically grab those values. So it's kind of neat to see the different ways that people are able to approach it. There's no universal right or wrong way to use UTMs. I mean, there's some ways that work better than others, but there are you'll find that there's different scenarios where you'll get different types of information depending on the type of campaigns that you run, the different types of media, the different types of there's that UTM term value, right? If you're not doing a lot of search advertising, or Google search is a big part of it, maybe terms aren't as important to you, right? So it was neat to see some of the different variations around that. So really good discussion though, and looking forward to a lot more things coming out of Baltimore.
Yeah, Michael, I would say we just tokenized our UTMs maybe like 3 or 4 months ago in our best practice templates, and it has been such a game changer for us because we have the different sections like the banners, UTA, and like body where you typically put a URL, and just being able to tokenize it and like update it, the actual link in one place, and ensure all the tracking parameters are already going to be there exactly how you need them. It's been a huge game changer.
Where did you get that? Like, I know we discussed it a couple months ago in the mugs, but had you done that in a previous edition?
No, this was Carrie Chandler and I talking in the Marketo Champion community about how she had done it. And we were really trying to standardize all of our templates using like a best practices workspace and everything. And it sounded like a much easier way of doing things than we had previously. So just figured it out that way. But it's been a really big game changer in terms of just time savings and everything like that.
Yeah, I can see that. Warren, you go next. What's a session that you caught this month that really stood out in your mind?
The North America Virtual Marketer User Group was my one. Like, I'm such a big fan of Keith Nienberg anyway, because he's said, like, and this is from last year as well, because he goes into the instance and shows you what he's doing and explains it very well, very clearly. And as someone who's a visual person, I really appreciate that approach. So that North America Virtual Marketer User Group is led by Sydney. I forget who else leads that. Jackie Potts and Natalie Kramer as well. But they had Keith presenting, and he used his people performance report trick to be able to tell you how many times to send an email. And so what he did is he broke up his smart list into was sent email more than X times, was not sent email more than X times, and he uses those two to create brackets of smart lists that he will then drag into a people performance report. And since he showed me that trick from last year, I use it all the time now for lots of different use cases. So I really appreciate just Keith showing that people performance report thing again. And it's just a really useful way to be able to get some really interesting reports from Marketo. And again, I just appreciate the approach of actually going into Marketo straight away and showing what you click on, where to go. And I'm like, oh, this is easy to follow. I can bring this straight to my instance. So yeah, I'm going to call out that one. That was, and the recording is there as well. Both on the mugs.marketo.com and I believe on the YouTube as well. So that's also a great one to catch.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, what's interesting. I saw that session, saw the reports that he was producing, and then immediately thought of the session that you and Chloe ran about Europe, about deliverability. And so now I'm building out reports that break out the AOL audience, the Gmail audience, the Verizon audience, so that you can then kind of track for any send that you're going to do, who, you know, whether that you need to throttle down your ISP traffic. So Chloe, I'm going to you next on the next session, but, you know, just love what you guys are producing out of that Europe mug as well too, right?
Thank you. We appreciate it. We don't meet frequently, but when we do, so far we've hit it out of the ballpark, I think we could say.
Yeah.
The other session, I actually wanted to talk about the European session that we did this month with Lauren. It made an impact on myself and Lauren because it's a topic that's not talked about a lot. Email deliverability is sometimes so simple that a lot of marketers think, oh, you know, we don't need to talk about it. We don't need to worry about it. But frequently, and definitely speaking for myself, I've found myself in situations where management has come to me saying, how many people are opening our emails? Why aren't more people clicking? And it's difficult sometimes to explain to executive teams the importance of certain email metrics and the non-importance of others. And Lauren helped us understand the difference between delivery rates versus deliverability, and what are the different factors that we have control over that actually affect deliverability. And some of the metrics that she said, you know, keep an eye on these because they're actually more important than you think. It's not the opens and the clicks and the conversions. It's actually the opposite. It's the spam complaints and unsubscribes, because all those negative interactions actually have a higher value per se. If you were like comparing it to lead scoring, have a higher value than those opens and clicks and even forwards. They affect your IP status if you're on a shared, or if you're on a dedicated, even more. And that was one of the questions that our audience brought up was, is it worth being on a shared IP, dedicated IP? And she brought up a great analogy of it's like taking public transportation versus driving your own car. You know, it's great to have your own car because you can go where you want to when you want to. It's a little more expensive versus public transportation being the shared IP route. It's cheaper, but sometimes, you know, there's some smelly people on board, and you get a whiff of something, and it ruins everything on the bus. So it depends on your org size, how frequently. I mean, if you're driving every day, it might be worth having your own car. If you drive once every month or once every 2 months, it may not be worth spending that money. So I really liked that that analogy she brought up. And then the last point I want to mention about our discussion was that she brought up the case of, you know, how to manage up when you're in those situations where your management is like, why aren't people opening our emails? And frequently we get emotional about it, and we say, well, it's not what matters. She reminds us, you know, remain fact-based, regardless of what industry or org you're working in. Executive teams, they communicate best when you talk to them about money, revenue. How much revenue are we driving, regardless of our email metrics? How much money are we saving? rather than talking about the cost center that is marketing, talk about, you know, revenue that we're bringing in via email marketing. So there were some, we did record it. It's on the YouTube channel. Definitely recommend those. If you ever have any email deliverability questions, it was a very quick session. We couldn't get into everything, but it was I loved it. It was a great one to have.
Actually, when I saw it, like I thought it was actually quite thorough. I thought that for what you went into it, and it, like no one topic went to the depth where it would become, you know, too much to be able to actually implement. And a lot of it was I don't know, digestible, implementable, something along those lines. Basically, it was easy to kind of take away. And before we go to jump over to Courtney too, right? I think one of the things that gets pointed out is you know, just something that I learned from it was if I could combine the learnings from the North American virtual mug, the European virtual mug, you can use them together, right? And so, and I think of the older ones now, I feel like I've gotten exposure to enough Marketo user group sessions that I often think back to like 2 or 3 months ago to content that I've seen there. And when new mugs come out, sometimes they'll present pieces and I go, well, if I apply this that was covered 2 months ago to this topic that was talking about something else, I can accomplish another goal. So as our library of Marketo user groups and recorded Marketo user groups grows, you know, this is going to open up a lot more opportunities. So as a marketer, right, look back through the cumulative volume of knowledge that exists now, and look at some of the older gems too, because you can apply those to the current applications and do quite a bit.
And just as a reminder on that, like the mugs.marketo.com is also searchable by topic as well. So, and it can be anything from any of the keywords in the description, it will bring that up. So I found that quite useful. And also what I thought was happening is happening as well. As we get more virtual recordings, some of the topics are slightly different. People are realizing that we can't just bring in a drift presentation. I know I talk about that all the time, but that's maybe a subjective pain point. But you know, some of those topics that are coming out are really quite interesting now. Even like looking into next month, I already see some really interesting ones coming up, like the death and taxes like hunt thing as well. And I think that's Andy's from the Chicago one. But yeah, there's some. I'm really enjoying now the variety of different topics that are coming out.
Yeah, that's a good point. Chicago is great. I'm excited to have Andy on next month as well too, and some of the insights that you know she and Brooke bring to the table. Courtney, what's the next one that you covered?
Well, I guess I can talk about the Charlotte mug.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That was one that's very near and dear to my heart. It was syncing complex CRM systems, and it was Jay Sturgis from Solomon Consulting, who he's actually the consultant who helped me with a very complex CRM integration into our Marketo instance at AvidXchange. And what I love just about that topic in general is I feel like as, you know, the MarTech world gets more and more complex, like as companies bring on acquisitions, as sometimes there are just like multiple technologies living in different organizations that you somehow need to figure out how to integrate into your marketing automation platform. A lot of what I had heard in the past was like, no, like that can't be done. You can't integrate 2 different CRM instances into one Marketo platform. Like you have to use the native integration. And, you know, a lot of times these companies, and including myself, when I was working through this at AvidXchange, you have business cases that you're trying to solve for and like a business need that doesn't always fit neatly in the box. And so Jay was able to really talk through like the different integration options that you do have. He talked through the native one. He talked through sort of using like a hybrid model, so using the native sync, but maybe some sort of middleware to bring in systems elsewhere, so that you're sort of being able to capture the full universe of what you're needing to integrate, but leverage that native functionality, or going fully customized using some sort of middleware option. And basically he talked through what those different options could be as well, like a no code, low code option, like a Workato or a Tray.io versus something more complex where you'd have to bring in your IT organization, like an Informatica. But it's just an interesting topic because the more I've been involved in like the Marketo champion community and the Marketo user group community, I've heard a lot of people are having similar issues at their company. And I've had several Marketo champions reach out to me like, how do you do this? So it's something that continues to come up, and I definitely recommend like watching it. It is a recording on the YouTube channel if you're interested in just learning what this would even look like.
I love the conversation about when to use middleware and when to use like the native sync, and then how there's that hybrid model. And I thought that, Jay's points about like what conditions, when is too much, right? How do you keep it simple? And
Right.
it's not well documented in the Marketo docs space because it can't be, because it's customized by nature, right? So there's no way you can write a one volume that talks about all of the different permutations and combinations of different changes that are going to happen there, right?
Right. And one story I like to tell just quickly is like when I was being tasked with doing this like 2 years ago, I tried to go to the Marketo community and just like pose the question like, hey, has anyone ever done this? I'm really looking to learn like what went wrong, what you'd recommend. And I just was met with like an overwhelming response of, why would you ever do such a terrible idea? Like, don't do it. And that really discouraged me. But like now, having sort of gone through that exercise and hearing more people having the same use case come up at their company, I do think it's important to put some content out there. Like, yes, this is maybe not the first option if you like can truly just do the native sync, but people have done it. You can do it, and you will. And so
yeah. We had a microphone mix up there for a second. It was kind of interesting, but yeah, no, you're good. It was kind of neat to see, and then also, I think that I don't think that it's an insurmountable path to talk about kind of customized syncs, right? And I think that as we get more into more content, you'll see a lot of content that's come up over the past 6 months about CDPs, and we're talking before this session too about data stores and data lakes and data warehousing. I do want to mention just at this kind of cross point too, as we're just looking through the calendar here, right? A lot of our content is obviously, we're all native English speakers, but I noticed that there's a lot of Japanese content that's still coming out here. So I want to make sure to give credence and credit, and then also a little exposure too to what's happening with the there's March the 10th an IT subcommittee for Japan, and then the Telecato one on March the 30th about the inside sales subcommittee. So lots of content that they're producing as well too. So that's a neat addition that you see. And then, kind of Warren, to your point about, being in charge of the champion community now, I noticed that one new addition to the Bevy platform is that we've got champion events that are coming in with these office hours on the 23rd. Who do you remember who the champion office hour folks were this month? Was it Chiara? Was that last month? It was last month, I think.
I can't remember now, but I think Blue Jeans is not a preferred platform, to put it lightly. If we had the option, so there was the decision that we would run more stuff on Bevy just because it's more accessible, and I think that's part of the parcel, right? We just have to make it as accessible and as viewable as possible, because other than that, it's our own Zooms, which is obviously not ideal. So that was a decision made, and we're going to start to do more stuff like that, particularly when it comes to like collaborating amongst the champion groups to then be able to output more of those thoughts and really develop the learning within the champions group and those discussions and meet and greet. We've got some really exciting things coming for at least discussed in the leadership team about how to make our knowledge as good as possible so we can share more stuff and have different ideas. And I'm really, really looking forward to that. But yeah, to answer your point, I mean, the Bevy platform is they're going to invest in that stuff as well. So why not go with the flow? But I won't be going Blue Jeans anytime soon. Okay. I keep forgetting this is recorded, but yeah.
What is the, so if people are listening to this and they haven't been to a champion office hour, what can they expect of the format? What do you do at a champion office hour?
So the champion office hours is typically where a Marketo champion that will present on a topic that's very close to them or they're an expert in, and then they will go and deep dive into that. Now there'll be a moderator and there'll be some questions, but it's really the opportunity for you to bring as many questions or as difficult as you like to those people, because there'll be a couple of champions on the call. We support each other as well, so one of us will be able to answer those questions. So for me, that is question time. Bring your A game questions and make them as hard as possible. So if you've got some, like even what Courtney referenced around those unique CRM cases, like those are the times to bring up those questions in the champions office hours. I would really recommend, if you have some individual use cases and things like that. Now it is recorded, so just remembering that, but it is worth bringing up the most difficult questions, because there will be someone on that call that'll be able to answer it, even if it's not the specific person presenting. As the champion community, we all kind of support each other as well, and we often attend those.
I think the neat thing too, from what I remember of the champion office hours that I've been to, is that usually the person asking the question is anonymous. So if you have a sensitive question, just phrase it in as generic a way that doesn't talk about your specific company, but talks about the challenge that you're having, and you'll get the answer. And you know, you can still do so with the anonymity of not saying that, you know, you're that person or the company is the person having that challenge too. So it's still a safe space, even though it is recorded, right?
Yeah, yeah.
A new addition that I see as well on this month's calendar, I don't want to say new, because you know, honestly, this virtual mug existed before I was in the virtual mug space, is the MS Dynamics virtual mug. And Courtney or Chloe, if either of you have this on your list that you've attended and want to speak about, like cut into that. I didn't go to it. I had a schedule conflict that day, unfortunately, but I love it. I love that you know, this existed as a virtual mug before I got into it in 2017. This was the only virtual mug that was still active when I had joined the Marketo User Group community, and this one was Catherine Champion. It's French. She's from Percuto in Montreal and Quebec City, and she's the Marketo User Group leader there. Was the speaker, and just talking a little bit about what you need to know about the dynamics to Marketo sync. And I think we'll be seeing a lot more syncs between Marketo and Dynamics going forward. So you know, the content is very interesting, and it's a little bit different from Salesforce. There's some nuances that are in the dynamic sync that I, you know, I found it very interesting dealing with the sync myself in the instances that I've been in. You know, if anybody else has experience on the dynamic sync that wants to jump into that, I think that this is going to be a good mug to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think there's not as much content actually on the dynamics, the sync. There's a lot of talk about I think, as Courtney highlighted, about the Salesforce sync, about like native integrations. But when someone asks a questions on dynamics, they're often left blank, which I could see what it is, because I feel like it's not as straightforward, and I don't come across an instance very often with the dynamics, and if it is, it's like we're trying to get rid of dynamics is when I come across it. So I mean, that's a great one to follow if you're kind of dynamics is your CRM and you're kind of bound to that. And I think that will be, because you know, also there'll be people that use dynamics that you can just ask questions to as well. So that I think is an important consideration. You can share each other's pain using the dynamics integration.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're running close on time here. And so is there any other sessions that we haven't covered that any of you have prepped for that you want to be able to cap off here before we close it up?
I was going to actually ask you, Michael, about, you were speaking with Tashi from the champions around the format of the Japanese Marketo user groups. Around how they have beginner, base, intermediate, and expert. I just wanted to know if you can maybe touch on that format, because I thought it was a really interesting format, and I know you two were discussing about that.
Yeah, we're really, I love what they're doing out there, and because of the language barrier, they're able to synthesize a lot of their own content. And so you'll see here that there's a Marketo Foundations event that they put on. The last one was March 11th, that just talks about mastering smart campaigns. And part of the impetus of the conversation that we've been having has been around being able to support, some of the user groups that are in India. And, I know Gaurav Gupta and Amit Jain and I have been talking about being able to launch an initiative to help relaunch the New Delhi Marketo User Group and the India Marketo Virtual User Group. And so part of that is especially for for different parts of the world where there's less support on the user group content, is being able to kind of leverage that ability to say, if you're brand new to Marketo, we have a space that's specifically set up for you to participate in user groups. You don't always have to be talking about, some of the things that we've talked about today, right? Think about like some of the deliverability conversations and the deep connection, content with CRMs, right? Or the sessions that we're talking about around JavaScript and being able to do. A brand new Marketo user isn't necessarily going to get into something like that. So rather than overwhelming them, let's provide a couple of different venues for all sorts of different types of users in different areas of marketing operations to kind of participate. So, definitely those foundation sessions, they're in Japanese, but definitely a resource to look at and to throw it on Google Translate. I think, Warren, you've been to some of the ones with Google Translate to try and get information out of there. And I know some of the
Yeah, don't do that.
teleconferencing they're gonna do translating too.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't recommend the Google Translate. I tried that with the French Marketo User Group last time, and it was beyond hilarious. I sent Chloe the translation, but I got back. But there's within their instances, like you said, I think there's something that can be learned from that beginner, like introductory sessions. I think that's more all encompassing. But they share their screen in Marketo and literally go through almost like a class lesson. It's a formal lesson of how to do things in Marketo, and I just thought it was really interesting, and also something that I think we can learn as Marketo user group leaders to kind of offer that sort of content more around remembering some of those basic and inviting some of those newer users, which is something that I've always been keen on, as getting new users into to have those discussions and feeling confident there.
Oh, one piece I realized we haven't touched on, and because we're running out of time here, but the session about the new user experience, which is not that new now. I mean, we're a good 6 months into it, but the new piece is the updates about the drag and drop, and there's I think we're heading into phase 2 of 3 for that update. So anybody at that one that can touch base on that in like a minute or two? Or just tell us about the products.
I was able to watch some of the recording. I thought it was interesting because you guys know, like being in the Marketo User Group sort of leadership committee and on Marketo Champion, like we had sort of gone through the UI changes with the Marketo product team. But Alicia Khan from Atumos walked through, like she has a graphic design background and really sort of dug into the design differences that are happening in the new UI and explained those and broke it down that way, which was helpful for me because I knew that the new UI was like reflecting more of Adobe's look and feel, but like understanding sort of the why behind the new look and feel. And, a lot of the things I feel like we've talked about in these discussions about the new UI is like the tree is a little harder to navigate because it's all one color instead of, the different colors, like the light bulb turning yellow if it's campaigns turned on. She breaks down the design reasons as to why they made those updates, and also shared some tools. Like I think there's an Atumos Chrome extension you can add to help with some of those differences in colors. And Warren, I know your friend developed that like a long time ago as well, to try and make it a little easier to navigate the new UI. And also, like for me, we use workspaces and partitions, so we haven't even been migrated over to the new UI yet. And she gave sort of a timeline. They're saying it could be May before that happens for everyone. But yeah, it was a good session.
Yeah.
Just on that, the Chrome extension, I know we're almost out of time as well. Etomos added a lot more features just on top of that. So there's like things like UTM stuff, and they've done a really good job at maintaining that. So Edward and the team like have gone out of their way, and I think it's just an interesting, useful feature. And I love seeing interesting bolt-ons like that to kind of enhance our experience for sure.
Okay, guys, we're running out of
One
time.
thing I want to add, if I know, one quick thing I want to add, if you could pull up the slide again of last month's user groups, there's a theme that we're starting to see occur more frequently is, like you mentioned a little earlier, Michael, is these non-Marketo specific user groups happening, like the IT subcommittee. It's more IT based, inside sales. Like, I haven't attended one of those yet, but I'm assuming it talks more about the role of being an inside sales rep, the deliverability, the one that we did. And then next month, I've spoken a little bit with the Germany user group leaders, and they're going to do one on a topic that has nothing to do with Marketo. It's going to be about sales and marketing alignment. So keep an eye for that coming out, hopefully this month in April. And so I'm seeing this theme occur more frequently, is more generic topics that I think actually we're all marketers and we all have the same challenges. So I think it's also very helpful to the community to have these not product Marketo specific discussions happening. It's been helpful for me, at least.
That's great. That's a great call out, by the way, too. And it's an interesting point, right? There's so much of the content historically has been around how do you do this, how do you do that, and just sort of the instructional features of Marketo, the feature set, if you will. But it's, if you think of what's that model about features, benefits, and end results, right? If you talk a little bit more about the end results that happen and some of the marketing strategy, what do you do with your Marketo instance once you've done all of the things about building out your operational programs and whatnot. And so that's always a delta, I think, that gets missed sometimes. And it's neat to see the community start to evolve. Because we're out of time, but God, I'd love to just keep talking about this, and we do talk about this a lot, right? So, Warren can tell you firsthand. Our next session, and I want to thank both Courtney and Chloe for making themselves available to be able to talk with us here. So we're really grateful for that. Our next session covering this month, April 2021, and all the Marketo user groups. And we'll probably talk about Marketo Summit or Adobe Summit. I keep saying that out of habit, but that'll be coming up on Monday, May the 3rd, 2021. And we've already got our speakers lined up there. And so Andy Carone from the Chicago Marketo user group from Revenue Pulse, and Amanda Thomas from the Houston Marketo user group and who's a consultant at Atomos, will be our panelists for that month. So if you want to go ahead and sign up for that, just ping us a note on the LinkedIn channel or message Warren and I privately. We'll make sure that you get added to that, and we'll be sending out a event notification, and you can see that on the mugs.marketo.com website as well too, if you want to sign up for those. So thank you all for attending. We'll be up on the YouTube channel, so you'll see the recording of this there, and we look forward to seeing you guys in a month from now.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.